Yes, my name is Franziska Schroeder. I'm based at the Sonic Arts Research Center in Queens, University of Belfast. And this was a collaboration between a local charity that works with disabled musicians called Drake Music Northern Ireland. We also teamed up with an immersive content designer based in Spain called Be Another Lab. And ourselves at the Sonic Arts Research Center, we've been for many years doing research into immersive audio, spatial audio, positional audio, and so on. So it was a really great partnership. The other partner was a professional music ensemble called the Hard Rain Soloist Ensemble. And we started basically not knowing very much about, so we bought an HTC Vive, like I've seen many of you did, but what we were really interested in is finding out what these technologies, these emerging technologies, do or don't do for people with very limited abilities. So for example, we're working with a musician with cerebral palsy, and as you know, the Vive, first of all, you need to be able to see, so we're working with a blind musician where this kind of new technology makes not a lot of sense. The girl with cerebral palsy has great upper body movement, but again, as you know, the controllers on the Vive require fairly precise, sometimes, pressing a button or finding a sort of an object and having to sort of navigate in very precise ways. So we ended up, first of all, making a piece called Embrace. And the piece was really giving the experiences of being a disabled musician and hearing the stories about disability, about accessing concert spaces. So it was a kind of a 5-minute narrative story. It's about inclusion, it's about embracing difference. And we brought a version on an Oculus Go, which you're very welcome to try out in the black box. And I would encourage you to do it. So it's just a little story. But we also spent 8 months in fairly intense workshops looking at these technologies. So from everything, from actually taking them apart and stripping the Vive controllers of its components to see how the blind musician might make sense. What do the professional musicians who've never really experienced, most of them had never even worn a headset, what does that mean for the sort of music making process? So we're asking ourselves a lot of questions. What are we going to see? What are we going to hear? What's the blind musician going to, what is his experience going to be with these fairly visually centered technologies? What's the music we're going to play? Where is the audience going to be? What are they going to experience? Are they going to see? Are they going to hear? Are they going to be part of the creation journey and so on? So lots of questions during those 8 months projects. And we ended up creating, which is the most exciting bit because it just came through the process. I was contacted by a US software developer, Zach Kinstner, who's been developing VR virtual instruments. And we've been adopting and adapting this VR instrument called the AHRC for the girl with cerebral palsy. What you can see on the screen, these colors, is a virtual environment. So it's like a virtual drum. She can, with her upper movements, basically trigger the sounds of that drum. So in a way, the concert ended up being very much about the abilities of the disabled musicians and how VR technology has been adapted to include them in a professional music concert scenario. And for this girl who's been a musician for over 20 years, it was just an incredible experience, first of all, to have an instrument that she can play. Obviously, I've been working with a charity for many years. We've been exploring off-the-shelf kind of technologies, sensor technologies and so on. The first time she tried this instrument, her expression, and she doesn't speak very much, was like, wow. And the fact that she even was able to say, wow, that she had an instrument, that she was passionate playing with a professional chamber group, for us, that was, I think, the most amazing experience. And finally, we ended with a public debate on policy. We had invited people from the Audience Agency UK, people who program inclusive music concerts like the Birmingham Symphony, local artists, industry partners, and so on, to explore some of the issues. And going forward, hopefully the follow-on funding will come towards us, would be amazing, is really to think about how these very expensive technologies like the HTC Vive, as you all know, costs a lot of money, how that can be rolled out on slightly cheaper sets like the Oculus Go, for example. So the real aim is to create a virtual music instrument orchestra in Northern Ireland using abled and disabled musicians. Thank you.